We are going to dive into all 16 of your NFL Week 3 games. A little more information now as all of these teams have played twice. Couple big picture things to talk about before we start getting into our game-by-game previews. We are recording this on Wednesday night. Now, as the season starts to go on a little bit more, we will probably have a lot of times on Wednesday night where we don't know exactly 100% if someone's going to play or not, injury, things like that. Lines might move. What's nice about that is Erik and I have a couple different shows throughout the week at different points of the week. So we'll always be able to give you the best information we have as soon as we have it. If you're listening to this on Wednesday or early Thursday, we have a show on Friday evening, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on social media. It's at DRF Sportsbook. We give out our best bets for the weekend, and then we give out college football plays. Then Sunday morning, we have the NFL Betting Blitz show where we go over every single game for Sunday. We talk about all the up-to-date lines, the last-minute fantasy stuff, and we're actually able to really give you more DFS and prop advice. So keep that in mind as we have a couple different places throughout the week where you can join us. Erik also has a couple different podcasts on Tuesday and then again on Friday. So much football content, buddy, all throughout the year. How's it been going for you the first 2 weeks in?
Positive on the sports betting, up in my DFS stuff, and I'm 1-1 across my 3 leagues in season 1. So pretty good start. Pretty good. Like the positions I'm in all my fantasy leagues, I'm making money, so it's good. A little disappointing. I'm a huge Nick Chubb guy. He's my favorite.
Oh, man, that was a bummer. That was a bummer.
And the thing that sucks is, like, there's some people that play NFL. They're just, like, scummy people. He's, like, legitimately, like, one of the good ones. He just kind of keeps
You never hear him say a word. Nothing.
There was that video that was going around a couple years ago when it was him and, like, I think it was Beckham or somebody was like, I want a touchdown. He was just like, I just want to win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is the same knee that he hurt in college. He may be able to come back. I don't know if he does in what capacity. And it probably cost him his chance at the Hall of Fame too. So kind of a little sombering news on Monday. I will be honest, as soon as it happened, I kind of turned off the game. So
yeah, it is hard to get interested in something like that, especially like you said with a player like him, who's always been just seemingly such a good guy on and off the field. So Erik, now as we get into week 3, we're going to look at the betting lines over at DRF Sportsbook. We encourage any of you in the state of Iowa, that's where they have Sportsbook up and running right now. Make sure to sign up for an account. Use our promo code FAST350. It'll get you a $350 sign-up bonus. So anywhere in the state of Iowa, let your friends, let your family members know. Sign up, use that promo code. It'll get you the bonus. We're going to look at the lines there. And Erik, we're going to look this week. We got already 3 double-digit lines. Vegas ain't waiting long this year before they're pumping up the big numbers, huh? Normally, we don't start to see the 10s and the 12s start to show up till, I don't know, week 6, 7, a little later in the year, but we got them already in week 3.
Tricky week. A lot of big numbers out there. Obviously, I tread lightly.
Yeah.
I talked to my friend who manages a sports book. He's like, this is our worst start to the season in terms of what he goes, a lot of public bets are winning. He said, like, last week was brutal for us with the 49ers, Bills, and there was one other big one, all winning.
Cowboys.
And then the Cowboys. He goes, those 3, we money line parlays all the way around, and then the Dolphins winning and covering on the nightcap. It's kind of weird. Like, football is so heavily bet on. Like, there's not as much public money added all up. It gets pretty close to sharp money. It's
Sure.
a little different than the other sports just because NFL football betting is just so
public. It's so huge. There's nothing comparable to it, really. And now we've got these teams that are 0-2, and they have to see if they can bounce back. We have couple playoff teams from last year, the Bengals, Chargers, Vikings, all start 0-2. Bengals did it last year. No team has ever started 0-2 in back-to-back years and made the playoffs in both. They'll try to be the first team to do so. We're going to talk a lot about them because they have some major injury issues that they're dealing with. But we're going to go in order of the games. If you ever want to follow along with us, we will be going through them in order that they show up on DRF Sportsbook. And we'll take a look at those betting lines right now, Eric. This one says San Francisco 49ers -10. The Giants are a 10-point dog here. So short week for these two teams after the 49ers. I got to say, and I probably come off a lot as a 49ers hater, and I'm a Rams fan. It's very little to do with like a fan, like a rivalry, or the fact that the 49ers have beaten the Rams a lot recently. Sort of more has to do with the 49ers overall always just seem to get the benefit of a lot of the bounces during the games. They've had some bad quarterback luck, and some years they've had some bad injury luck, but wow, like you're watching the game, and the Rams were really playing well a lot of that game. They were dominating. Dominating's a overstretch. They were definitely playing well, and they were playing a little bit better in that game. And they had the ball. They had the opportunity, or they were up going into the first half. 49ers score right at the end of the first half. And then late again, it's tied. Rams are driving. A ball bounces right off of their receiver's hands into the 49ers' hands. They go back and kick a field goal. It sort of flips the game. Later in the game, Van Jefferson runs a terrible route. 49er defender steps right in front of him. And those two turnovers were basically the difference in the game. We'll shout out Sean McVay when we get to the Rams for getting us a nice cover on that one, Eric, with the Rams there. But he did give a good...
I know everyone's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But anyone that watched the game, there's no reason the 49ers should win by over 7. And at the end of the day...
And you're right. And that's the thing. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. There was not a reason. The Rams won the box score based on everything. They got a couple bounces, the 49ers did, and they win that game. But that's one thing that's tough about this team, Eric, is that so the counter to my point of they get lucky is every time another team makes a mistake against them, they capitalize. Every time. Yeah. Every single time. And there's a lot of teams out there that get mistakes and don't capitalize. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the difference between them. They have a really good baseline, a really good floor of head coaching. But now they're going to start to get to be really big numbers this year. Because they're already like on the short list of best teams in the league. We've seen them look dominant so far with their defense in week 1. And then last week, they make a couple big plays late. The one thing, though, that stood out to me last week, and Purdy has been very, very good. He had 3 bad missed throws last week to wide receivers. He missed a touchdown to Ayuk, then a big play to Jennings on 3rd and 7, and then another pass that could have been a touchdown to Debo. Last week, he was graded quarterback number 24 based on Pro Football Focus. He's graded as QB 17 so far this year through 2 weeks. Just something to keep an eye on, because in closer games or against tougher opponents or in games when things might go a little wrong for them, if he needs to make big throws, he missed a few of them that could have put the game away early or could have had them up bigger on the Rams. McCaffrey, I'm not sure exactly what to take out of this. I mean, it's a positive. He's obviously healthy, but he played 100% of the offensive snaps for the first time since 2019. Always get weary with someone like him, because is it more important to have him on the field for 100% of the snaps against the Rams in week 2? Or is it more important to have him on the field for 90% of the snaps in round 1 of the playoffs? That's to me what I would prefer, right, Eric?
And plus, they have a quick turnaround. We kind of saw it. We see a lot of teams do this. We limit their running backs on Sunday, and then they're in line for a big work on Thursday. I was a little leery about playing. That's why when we did our NFL blitzing show, I said, hey, if you want to go against the grain, my reasoning for taking the under in that free to play on parlay play was because these running backs generally, if they get a big workload on Sunday, they have a lighter workload on Thursday and vice versa. Kind of leads me. I don't know how much we're going to see of CMC come Thursday, just with a quick turnaround. When I'm looking at this stuff now, everyone that knows me knows I love taking these big numbers, but historically speaking, big favorites tend to cover on Thursday. Favorites on Thursday laying 7 or more are 50 and 31. That is 61.7% against the number. Home favorites that are laying this big of a number are 37 and 21. That is 63.8% against the number. So the trends kind of say to take the big number, even though historically
and
I don't do it. Giants,
and I'm not gonna do it, right? Like I'm not gonna play this.
No, I'm not.
But you're right. It's more of a that we won't play the other side, right? Or that you don't want to feel the need to play the other side, especially because we find out
some player props. I mean, because the Giants offense did look better. Obviously no Barkley. Thomas was banged up.
It's going to have to be Jones too, because the O-line, they already announced those guys are out today. So they just announced Barkley's out and both the offensive linemen are out for Thursday's game. They just did a few minutes ago. So for them to be competitive, got to be Jones, and he's got to run the ball a little bit. They did look a lot better in the second half, obviously. Guys that I might look to, Eric, a guy that you were high on in the preseason, Hyatt, rookie, wide receiver. He made a couple big plays. He had a 31-yard catch late in the fourth. Early in the game, he had a 58-yard reception on the first play of the second half. You could tell they came out of the second half motivated. Dude, this team was down 20-0 at half. And then the first drive of the third quarter, they go 3 plays, 75 yards. They score a touchdown, tie the game with 28 with 4 minutes left, and then they force Arizona to punt. They got tough in the fourth quarter. They didn't allow Arizona to cross the 44-yard line on the defensive side. They scored 24 unanswered points. Largest comeback in the franchise's Super Bowl in their history in the Super Bowl era. Win probability was as low as 4.7% with 38 seconds left to go in the third quarter. But Jones was awesome in the second half. 259 yards passing, the most he's had in any half in his career. Waller, shout out, he was on the field for 89% of offensive snaps. That was the most for him since mid-2021 for any game. Sort of the flip side of McCaffrey. For Waller, it's a little bit different. Him running routes out there, he's not getting banged up, right? I think him running the routes shows that he is a little bit healthier. For McCaffrey, you have him out there taking a few more hits here and there, a few more blocks here and there. Just, I don't know if that's necessary, especially for a 49ers team that has some capable backups there. Waller, they need Waller to be the focal point of their offense, especially in a game like this if they were going to do anything. For props, Eric, I might look to maybe Jones, maybe Hyatt, maybe Waller if you're looking at the Giants props, because they have the template to be down, to be needing to come back, for Jones to needing to be run, and then to have to throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the one that kind of looks out to me would be Kittle, just because the Giants have kind of struggled against the tight end. Yep. Kittle's going to have a good matchup. But when you have a prop like Kittle's is probably going to be in the 40s to 50 range. So game dependent. I mean, because if the 49ers get up, they're not going to pass. They're just going to sit on the ball. And that would be the one thing. And another thing with betting the 49ers is this is kind of their peak. This is kind of where
they're at their highest value right now.
So I think the 49ers are going to win the game, but in terms of getting on a side, I don't want anything to do.
And it's just scary because we can obviously see the game in our heads from last week, Sunday Night Football, the Giants and the Cowboys. And we know that the Giants are going to be without 2 offensive linemen and their best player. So there are versions of this game, Eric, that look a lot like that game where the Giants just can't do much. They don't have Barkley there to help them out. Their offensive line can't block anything. And Daniel Jones is running for his life. They don't even have time to connect passes. And then San Francisco, you just keep giving them the ball back over and over and over again, and they're just going to wear you down. So that's what's scary for me about playing this game, is that we could very easily see that happen. But on the flip side, the Thursday night games are ugly. Then on the other flip side, you pointed out how the big dogs have hit. I'm staying away from this one. Props are probably the way I target it.
Yep. Yeah, I want nothing. Maybe some props, that'd be it.
Let's go to Falcons at Lions. Your Lions are a 3.5-point favorite here. They're now 1-1 after an overtime loss to Seattle last week. The Falcons 2-0. Nice win for them last week. So the Falcons, they should have won that. They should have won that game by more. They did have a couple dropped interceptions that Ritter had, that one of them should have been a pick six. There was probably two, maybe even three of them. But I sent you a text during the game, and I felt as the game was going on, as someone who has backed the Falcons in a lot of season-wide stuff, I felt a lot better about how Arthur Smith was sort of taking off the kid gloves little by little with Ritter. And then they got sort of forced to have to. They were down by 12. So then they are in a situation where they have to throw the ball a little bit. They have to get a little more aggressive. And I liked what I saw from him. He seemed to get a little pumped up on the sideline too. And sometimes you need that. You need moments where you kind of have a breakthrough performance, or you have a couple big plays and it starts to build your confidence. That's what it is for probably a guy like Ritter and some of these young quarterbacks. It's confidence. He's not being asked to do too much, so he doesn't have a whole lot of opportunity. He'll get a couple passes, he'll miss one or two, and then it probably sits in his head. And now that I think this could be a big week, that could have been a big week for him. I mean, they really dominated that box score. They had 10 more first downs than Green Bay. They ran 31 more total plays, almost double the total yards of the Packers, 446 to 224. Both teams had 10 drives. Atlanta had 5.7 yards per play. The Packers had 4.8. They won the time of possession by almost 13 minutes, more than 12 and a half minutes. They were just running the ball, 211 yards rushing on 45 yards attempt, 4.7 yards per rush. Reason why they didn't blow them out earlier, they were just 2 of 5 in the red zone. And Ritter did have a couple awful passes. Mentioned the dropped interceptions. One would have been a pick six. And then Mac Hollins was a little unlucky. There was one play, I thought it was a touchdown, Eric, where he had the toes in, and then it looked like he came down on the heels. It was really close. They overturned it. And then after that, another catch that he had that would have been a first down on a big third down sort of bobbled. So there were two big plays that swung the Packers' way. And if they go the Falcons' way, it's definitely a different game in the scoreboard. This is the first time Atlanta has won their first two games since 2017. They haven't even started 2-0 in 6 years. And here they are. But the schedule sort of looked like it. And for as much as you do not want to draft a running back early, if you do, you better make sure they are like Bijan. My son Milo loves saying it with me when I'm here, and I've got him on a few of my fantasy teams. And Eric, since you and I are a little high on the Falcons this year, well, I'm watching the Falcons on Sunday. Anytime he gets the ball and does something good, I'll scream Bijan, and then Milo will scream it with me because he just thinks it's great. So he'll be watching it now. Now he pops it up a few times. It's kind of cool. So man, this guy's a stud. He had 19 carries, 124 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, 172 scrimmage yards because he had 4 catches. He picked up a big first down late on a 3rd and 3 on the drive where they went on to kick the game-winning field goal. He's 7th in the league in success rate as an individual runner, 3rd in rushing yards over expectation per attempt, 2nd in overall rushing yards over expectation. Just awesome. 2nd in overall rushing yards, 4th in yards for scrimmage, averaging 6.2 yards per carry. He had multiple runs of 10 yards for the 2nd week in a row. And he's the target rate leader among running backs. Just what you want from a guy that you're going to pick high. If you spend a pick on this guy, use him. And they did this week, and he helped them win the game with some big plays here and there. And the defense, just like you had pointed out, Eric, they were much improved. The scheme was going to be better. They made a lot of acquisitions in the offseason. In the 4th quarter, they did not allow the Packers to get 1 first down in the 4th quarter. 3 drives, didn't pick up a first down. And overall, the Packers only had 224 total yards and 17 first downs. They only allowed 84 yards rushing on 21 rushing attempts, so 4 yards per rush. And they just got to clean up some of the penalties. They had 2 awful pass interference penalties. So overall, I think they had 6 penalties for like 119 yards. I talked a lot about the Falcons side. Now we can kind of lean over to the Lions side here on your Lions, who, God, that felt like an old Lions loss, didn't it, too? Just another one.
They're kind of set up to fail.
Yeah, they were.
I don't want to use the term set up to fail,
but
I sniffed that line out.
You did. You could tell. And then from a more than the movement and maybe them coming off the big win early on, just looking at what happened during the game, like late in the game, they're without 2 offensive linemen. Another one of them has to shift over. That happens right before Goff throws the interception, which is the pick six. 2 turnovers that end up leading to 14 points. You have 3 turnovers there in the game, and that's honestly the difference in the game. And then you don't even get a chance in overtime.
And Hutchinson, it looked like he was held in the last play, is what it is. Bottom line is
little things.
I talked about it Tuesday night on my show. Lions are just, end of the day, Lions just effed up the draft. They had a chance to draft Carter or Wilson, pairing with Hutch, 2 young guys on rookie deals. But for whatever reason, they felt they needed to trade DeAndre Swift. I know Swift and Deuce Staley didn't get along, but Deuce is no longer in the building. And then you draft Gibbs, you can't even get
they don't want to use him, Eric, in between the tackles. You can just see once Montgomery left, they don't. And it may be because they don't want to get him banged up, whatever. He had 9 targets, but like, look at the difference in usage between him and Bijan, right? A guy that they drafted high, they use him like a guy that they drafted high and want to make a difference in the game. And you don't do that with him.
You really got to question what Holmes did. I really think the Lions kind of messed up what could have been. They're insanely banged up. Montgomery thigh, St. Brown turf coat, Decker, Vitae on the O-line, Mosley with his hamstring in the back, Kirby in the back, Gardner, what's his name? Gardner Johnson. He went on the IR for a torn pec. He could be out for the year. He's probably out for the year. Houston on the IR. Pascal on the IR. They're just insanely banged up. You talked about the Falcons. The main thing that stood out for me for the Falcons is they average 7.12 yards per pass attempt, 4.69 per carry, per PFF. The Falcons have the best O-line defensive line matchup. Brown has a great matchup working in the slot, but if he can't go because of that turf coat, that's going to really limit the offensive production because the Lions funnel everything into the middle. But at the end of the day, numbers wise, how I look at this, when this opened up at 5, which is an absorbent amount of points in my eyes.
Oh yeah. And
this has moved all the way down to 3.5. I just kind of feel like
you didn't get it before. It's here. If you missed the number before here,
but as crazy as it sounds,
you're almost on the Lions if it hits 3.
If it hits the 3,
it would be the Lions based on just the number.
I'm gonna be on the Lions just kind of based on the number. One thing to remember is, and this is just the way it is with some people, some guys do really good at home, really bad on the road. Ritter never lost
a home game
in college
and in the NFL.
So maybe that's just kind of, how Ritter is. I don't know. We'll see. Detroit, if this gets to 3, look, I'm definitely going to be on Detroit. I wish I had like some analytical reason to be it, but
no, but it's 2.5 points, 2 points, 2 full points, and getting to a key number, getting back down to a 1 possession game, because now we would get to the point where if it's just 3, we'd get to the point where Atlanta's getting a little overvalued, because this should probably be a little more than just the 3. That it should have started close to this right now, 3.5 or 4, right? But since it's moved so much, we've already gotten the value on it now. So yeah, I mean, I'm on the Falcons this year, but this is a stay away one for me because I think the Lions will bounce back and play well in here. Let's move along, Eric. We keep rolling. Next game on the slate for us to discuss, Bills at the Commanders. We have the Bills as a 6.5 point favorite on the road here. They bounced back nicely last week against the Raiders. The Commanders, they were down 21-3, and they had a really good second half. I got to say, Sam Howell threw one of the best passes that you'll see this year. It was a 30-yard dart to Terry Mack, and he finished 27 of 39 for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's the first quarterback for this franchise to win their first 3 career starts since at least 1950. That to me is insane. They gained 90 yards on their first 20 plays of the game. Just terrible. Couldn't get anything going. Then they go 9 plays, 49 yards. They score a touchdown on 4th and goal late in the first half. And it's like that sort of sparked it for them. They scored 3 touchdown drives in the second half. Young returned to the defensive line again, helped them step up when the team needed it. They had 6 sacks overall in the game, did the line. The defense has now forced 4 turnovers in 2 games. You pointed out in, I think, both games and before the year that Brian Robinson was the running back you wanted. He had 87 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He caught 2 passes for 42 yards. It was great to see them involved in the screen game. Heck, they came back and won a game even when they missed 2 field goals. And the game looked closer late because the Broncos had a Hail Mary and they got a chance to try to tie that game. The Bills, if you are a fan of the Bills.
How bad was that call? Like, how could you not call PI on that?
Oh, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
That was
hands down.
That was no matter what side you backed, that was unbelievable.
I mean, that was just absolutely insane because he didn't even touch the ball.
Not at all. There was no attempt for it at all. Just awful. Flip side for the Bills, they looked a lot more like a well-rounded team last week. And Eric, for them, they're going to have games like this where they ran the ball 35 times, 183 yards, and only 3 of those for 7 yards was from Josh Allen. Can't have all the bumps and bruises week in, week out. They leaned on James Cook, 17 carries, 123 yards, 7.2 yards per carry. Also had 36 yards receiving. I mean, they dominated the Raiders from the second quarter on, more than double first downs. They ran more than 35 plays. They had over 200 more total yards than the Raiders. They held the ball for more than 40 minutes of the game, and the Raiders didn't even have it for 20. They had long touchdown drives, 11 plays, 15 plays. They hit 9 different receivers. From a gambling standpoint, I'm not laying the number with the Bills. You've got Washington, who's played pretty well, and they have a good defense, and they're, plus about a touchdown at home. That would be the only way I'm playing this game. I don't know if I'm going to officially lean on it because this does look like the type of game that I could see money going on the Bills as we get later in the week. So I'm not laying it with the Bills. I would play Washington in this game, but I haven't locked it in or anything yet. Talk to us about this one, Eric.
Allen spread 6 or more, 59%, 7 or more, 60.9%. I think the main thing for this is I still really don't trust this Bills defense with no Von Miller. I need Von Miller back there before I really want to get invested in the Bills, just because I really think them having a pass rush is really going to do everything. Bieniemy, credit where credit is due.
Their offense has played way better, right?
See the issues that the Chiefs are having, and you see how good Washington has looked offensively, you kind of start thinking maybe Bieniemy was a little bit more involved than what was being let on. And I think this is great for him because he got out of Andy Reid's shadow. I don't know. My football thinking is this. What gives the Commanders the best shot to stay within the number? Sam Howell staying back there and looking to pick apart the Bills secondary, which is good when healthy, or, as this is going to sound crazy, having to rush more because Von Miller is pressuring him. So does Von Miller not be there help the Bills because it forces Howell to be a drop back passer and not use his legs? We saw in the game against Denver, he was able to extend his legs and everything. I'm a little worried about the slow starting offense, though. They really didn't get it going to the second half of the game, obviously. You can't, like, a team like the Broncos, you can spot them points and be fine.
That's not going to work every week.
You can't get behind. No. Also, I'm a little bit worried, like, with the Broncos do run that Y9 system, which I've talked about before, which is easy to run on. That led to what Robinson had. Bills don't run that. I think they're going to struggle a little bit running the ball. I'm a little worried about getting Samuel and Dotson, getting those guys involved. Howell tends to lock in on one guy, doesn't scan the field. I don't know. Game is just a pass for me. I really don't want anything to do on either side. I know I generally like to take home dogs in this spot, but I just
I want to, and I'll wait and see if it can be 7 or over, and that would definitely entice me a bit more. Probably can't say that about this next one, unfortunately. I'm gonna be on the Dolphins. I'm gonna be on the Broncos most likely in this game against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a 6.5-point favorite in this one, over under 48.5. Tua is 5-0 against Belichick. Only quarterbacks undefeated against Belichick with multiple games are Elway, Plummer,
and they should have lost that game. Like,
oh, I know.
They should have lost that game. And
he's currently the favorite in the MVP. I will say he is the number one graded quarterback. He has 8 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays in his 2 games. It's the first time they're 2-0 since 2001. What you like to see is, I agree with you. I think they definitely had a couple different things that could have happened where they should have lost that game. They found a way to win, which is nice, because that was a game that I thought they would have lost, or I thought they could have lost. And I'm getting more impressed with Coach Mike McDaniel when he has his full team, because this game Belichick took away Tyreek Hill, so they just leaned on the run a little bit more. And Mostert was very good here. Hill only had 40 yards, and so they've shown different dimensions now. Mostert at 18 carries, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. Waddle's health is a concern here. Defense played a little better this week. They had 4 sacks, forced 2 turnovers. Patriots only had 88 yards rushing, and remember, Miami gave up 233 last week. Patriots only averaged 4 yards per play. That stop on 4th down when the guard just needed to get 6 inches more, Eric, or so, to pick up the first. So this was a tight game, back and forth. Keep in mind, Miami had the game early and this got tight. It got tight late. I think it was a little bit closer than it may have looked. If you're just sort of looking at the score, even if you're watching the game and you start dive into some of the advanced and analytic stuff. Coach Mike McDaniel has struggled with his challenges, though. Just 1 of 6 since last season. Talk to us about what you see in this game, Eric.
So the thing that stood out to me is this, a couple things. Buying low, selling high. Week 3, teams that are 0-2 straight up, which the Broncos are, and 0-2 ATS are 63 and 42. That's 60% ATS. When same situation, 0-2 ATS, that are dogs, 50 and 29, 63.3%. When there are dogs on the road, it's 34 and 17, 66.7%. There's another one. Teams that are 0-2 ATS, 0-2 record, playing a team that's 2-0 ATS and 2-0 in their record. The dog is 59% ATS in those matchups in week 3. That's just kind of the buying low, selling high thing on this. And, we kind of talk about, you mentioned it with the 49ers, just kind of bounces going their way kind of stuff, like being lucky versus unlucky. Let's use that term. Let's look at the Broncos. Broncos lost week 1 because Will Lutz, who's historically been a great kicker, kicking in a kicker-friendly stadium, misses an extra point and misses a field goal. Then they lose week 2 up, 21 points, and then had a Hail Mary to tie it up, and the PI wasn't called. There could easily be a world where the Broncos are sitting at 2-0.
Well, this is the first head coach since 1933 to lose each of his first 2 games with a new team by 2 points or less. It just doesn't happen.
And then the flip side, let's look at the Dolphins. Dolphins easily could have lost that game against the
Chargers.
That game just came back down to whoever.
Chargers had the ball with a chance.
And I really think this thing that stood out to me was this. New England had 6 drives into Dolphins territory and came away with just 3 points on those 6 drives. I mean, they were able to move the ball on them. Finn's defense hasn't been that great. Opponents have traveled inside the red zone 7 times. They've scored touchdowns in 6 of those 7 possessions.
And what's been the most surprising to me, Eric, just about the Broncos is their offense has been very good. Their offense is number 7 in DVOA. And Russ had an excellent first half. He had the second half, he wasn't quite as good, but he was good in week 1. He's not really been the problem. Their defense was really bad in this game, and historically, they've had a very, very good defense. They went from up 21-3 to down 35-24. This was the second week in a row where Kareem Jackson had a dumb penalty, where he had a necessary roughness hit, and he gets ejected.
That is, I would say dirty penalty. I wouldn't say
right?
dumb penalty.
Yeah.
I would say dirty penalty.
Just inexcusable, when you're trying to win games. And like it's just dirty, doesn't make sense. And now this team isn't as bad as their record would suggest, but the buzz is, oh my gosh, Sean Payton's here. Even last year they were 1-1. This was the biggest. I saw this one, the largest blown lead in Russell Wilson's career. I didn't realize he was on defense. Yeah. He said Russell Wilson blew an 18-point lead. He also had 6 carries in that game. He had 300 yards passing. He led the team in rushing with 56 yards rushing. He had a couple big plays, but they took a lot of sacks too. He had 6 sacks, and he's now tied for the most with 17 games in his career with 6+ sacks. And they were only 2 of 4 in the red zone. They have now lost 9 straight games when they've led at halftime,
which is brutal.
I like him though in this spot.
Yeah,
I'm on the Broncos.
And just looking at the Dolphins defense, Howard and Apple have graded out bad. We saw Marvin Mims finally get on the field more. I think we're going to see a lot more 3 wide receiver sets with Mims, Sutton, and Judy. Javonte Williams is getting more and more in shape. Wilson, historically good as a dog, 31-15, 68% ATS with the Broncos. He is 6-2 as a dog. Payton, one of the better coaches as a dog, 46, 29-2. That's 61.3%. I just kind of feel like everything at the end, unless you're the Minnesota Vikings of last year, evens out. I just think we're going to see.
And wait, we've seen the Minnesota Vikings from last year that it's evening it out this year, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I like the Broncos here.
Yeah.
I wish I would have got the 7, but I still like it at 6.5.
Me too. I'm fine at 6 and over. I'm still okay at 6 and over on the Broncos. Let's make that our first play this week so far through 2 weeks, 2 and 3, 3 and 2 for us. So dead even as we move to week 3. Broncos plus the 6.5 for our first play. Eric, let's go next to where are we headed next? Texans, Jags. So the Jags are a 9.5-point favorite in this one. Over under is 44. Lawrence, in that last game, the Jags were at an ugly game against the Chiefs. That's what worries me about this number, Eric. But what's hard is that the counter is the Texans had 4 missing offensive linemen last week. When you're without 4 missing offensive linemen, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot offensively. We can see they can't run the ball. I thought Stroud actually looked pretty good dealing with that. And so, I mean, the part of me does not want the Jags or does not think the Jags should be laying this number against anyone. But then on the flip side, I'm really, really worried about this offensive line with the Texans. I'm going to wait a little bit. If this floats up to double digits, that's where I probably get in. Stroud got hit 9 times, sacked 6 times. One of them caused him to lose a fumble, which set up an easy touchdown. He's dropped back 116 times in 2 games. They just have to find a way to run the ball more. That's just not going to go well for you when you don't have an offensive line like this and this guy's dropping back. He's going to continue to get hit. They were only 1 of 4 in the red zone. You and I were texting a little bit about it early. There was some head-scratching stuff and scheme stuff defensively and even a couple questions offensively from Ryans. I thought they looked a lot better in the second half. They almost came back in that game too. They just can't run the ball at all. 26 carries for 52 yards. A couple things for the Jags. Lawrence was 0 for 7 in goal-to-go throwing. That's the most incompletions in a goal-to-go throwing situation in a game since 2005. And their offensive line is really struggling. On the Jags side, too, it's not like it's going to be great for them. They allowed pressure on 25% of dropbacks. They allowed 3 sacks. They had 18 total first downs on 11 drives. They couldn't score a touchdown in a game when they had 1st and goal from the 1. They turned it over on downs twice, ended up going 0 of 3 on scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Just 271 total yards, only 4.2 yards per play. They were even given 3 points after Kansas City muffed a punt return. Yep. This 9-point total was the second fewest they've scored with Peterson. They overthrew a pass in the end zone, a bad miss of Calvin Ridley in the back of the end zone. Christian Kirk dropped a third down pass. Agnew fumbled a lateral. And the both of the lines are what's disappointing me about this team, Eric. They have talent on the defensive line, but they just aren't getting as many sacks as they should. They're not putting as much pressure on the quarterback as they should. Overall, that part of their team isn't being as impactful as it should be for them to take the next step. I'm definitely not laying this number with Jacksonville. I got to see if I can get there with Houston. If I can get to the 10, then I will. I'm going to need it with the problems they're dealing with.
It's starting to go down. In some books, it's already down to 8.
See, so yeah, we're not going to get that.
I took the 9.5. I'm fine taking the 9.5. Divisional road dogs, just overall, it doesn't matter the week, 54% ATS. Divisional road dogs, the first 3 weeks of the season are 57%. When it's the first 3 weeks of the season getting over 7, that's 58%. The same trend I mentioned earlier about 0-2 straight up, 0-2 ATS, 63 and 42, that's 60% ATS. We have to remember, what was the line when the Texans played the Ravens? It was this 9.5. And I really don't think the Jaguars, with the issues that they have, are as good as the team right now as the Ravens are. And we got to remember this when we're looking at the lines, because if the line is set like that, that's basically what the sports book is telling you. Also with the Jags, I think the key thing we need to remember is how poorly their offensive line has been. Yeah. Robinson is suspended, and Harrison, the rookie from Oklahoma, is one of the worst rated offensive tackles in the league right now. If Ryan, I'm going to believe the hype with Ryan. I'm going to believe that he is this big defensive mastermind that everyone is talking about, that he's going to be able to come up with a defensive game plan to exploit Harris on the line. Another thing that stood out to me when looking at cornerbacks, Texans have 2 of the 3 highest graded cornerbacks. Thomas and Nelson have had a great start to the season. I think those guys are going to be able to keep Ridley, Jones, Kirk, and crew kind of in check. I think I really like that. Also, has anyone else noticed Stroud is the 4th most passing yards in the league?
Yeah.
For being 0-2, he is getting the ball out. He is passing.
And they don't really have stud receivers either. Like, he's throwing Robert Woods, Nico Collins. Woods had a pretty good game. He's been fantasy relevant. Tank Dell.
I just think, and then I look at it, Peterson historically hasn't been able to cover these big numbers. When laying anything over 3 in his coaching career, he's only 41% against the number. I think this is just way too many points. We have to remember Jacksonville really doesn't have that big of a home field. And then when you look at their schedule, they're just coming off this game where let's face it, they probably should have beaten the Chiefs. And next week you're going overseas. I mean, this is kind of a sleepy type spot. Get up for that playoff rematch. Now you get a 1:00 game against the divisional dogs with the Texans. I'll take the Texans here. I bet them plus the 9.5.
Ravens versus the Colts. Ravens are a 7.5-point favorite at home. Over under in this one is 45. Lamar looked very good last week. It seemed like he got a lot more comfortable with that offense, and just having Andrews around helped. He was 24 of 33, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 54 rushing yards. It was his highest passer rating since week 2 of last year. He finished graded quarterback number 5 on the week, 2 big-time throws, one of them an awesome deep pass to Flowers, another really nice one to Aguilar on 3rd and 10, put him up, 3rd down, that put him up by 10. OBJ got hurt, so they used Nelson, Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, Flowers, Bateman, Andrews, all had some nice plays. He was very good when targeting receivers in the slot, was Lamar. They did this without 6 injured starters. couple offensive linemen, couple in the secondary, receiver, running back. Punt coverage, they allowed an 81-yard punt return, so they got to be better there. On the Colts side, Richardson looked pretty good early, but the concerns you have with him is because he runs so much, he's primed to get banged up a little bit, and that's what has happened already in 2 games. He's come out twice. But he led 2 touchdowns. He played really well. And then Minshew came in. He played really well. He actually finished graded quarterback number 4 on the week. He led 2 touchdown drives of 75 yards in the first half, and he put the Colts up by 18. The one thing he can do, if there are little openings, he can hit. He's an accurate passer, Minshew. Like, if you're just there with short stuff, he's going to hit you. That's what he did in college. He can throw the ball and hit his spots over and over. He just has a ceiling, right? But I've always been a little higher on Minshew than you have. Just, he's not necessarily a starting quarterback in the NFL, but as far as backups are concerned, I think he's about as good as there are of like backups in the league. And it was nice to see the Colts run the ball a little bit. Moss had 18 carries for 88 yards. Do you have a play in this one? Colts Ravens.
I hate myself. I'm betting the Colts. It's like, this is the week I have another quarterback coming up later that I absolutely despise that I'm betting on. I do the Colts here. I'm on them plus the 7.5. We need to talk about how there's 8 players out for them. I mean, OBJ, 2 offensive linemen out,
2 secondary
out. They're just way too banged up to be laying, this big of a number. And we talk about it with Mahomes, who we'll get to, a little bit later. Jackson is kind of morphing into a little Mahomes where he is covering as a small favorite, but when it comes to these bigger favorites, he's having a hard time covering. 17-25, 40%. Home favorite, 11-18, 37.9%. I really think the big thing for me that's kind of sticking out and everything is the injuries to the offensive line for the Ravens versus DeForest Buckner and that defensive line of the Colts, because that's a very good defensive line. I think they're going to be able to create some havoc and get to Lamar. And I really haven't been that impressed. There's been one good throw I've seen to Zay Flowers from Lamar Jackson in 2 games. I think 7 is just way too many points. I'm not laying this. I'm thinking about in one of my 2 making this a survivor play because I've been looking through it, and those 3 double-digit spreads this week, everybody's jumping on those teams. And I feel like one of those teams, like when you generally have that, like the Ravens this week are kind of a little undervalued as a survivor team. That's way different than laying them as 7.5-point favorites. Because 49ers and the Cowboys and the Chiefs are the 3 teams that are taking the bulk of the survivor money. I'm not laying this with the Ravens. You hit the nail on the head. They're too banged up to lay this type of a number at over a touchdown. I haven't made this a play yet, but I'm on the Colts side as I like a couple other games more, but I would definitely lean Colts on that one with you, not on the Ravens side there with all those injuries. 2 teams that are 0-2 and that could very easily be 2-0 the way things have bounced for them. And it's about a pick 'em or so. The Vikings and the Chargers over under in this game is 54, and it keeps going up. So the Vikings down 3 with 45 seconds left in the first half. They have the ball at the Eagles 31. Big play to Jefferson. Looks like he scores a touchdown. Actually fumbles it through the end zone. So instead of going up by 4, the Eagles get the ball and they kick a 61-yard field goal. So that's a 10-point swing in the game right there within 45 seconds. Those are all of the things that went positive for the Vikings last year. They come right out of the half and they surrender a touchdown on the opening drive of the third quarter. They have the worst fumble luck
through a team's first 2 games since the 2003 St. Louis Rams. Last year, they had 10 total fumbles the entire regular season. So far, they have 6 through their first 2 games. They had 4 different players fumble on Thursday. It's not like it's just a bad quarterback who's struggling or a bad running back. Like, their best players are having bad moments at very crucial times.
Yeah, the Jefferson fumble was
right. A killer. Just a killer. Offensive line is struggling. Bradbury out. Ingram's not playing well. Replacement got carted off with an injury. They have 7 turnovers through the first 2 games, and those 2 games have been decided by 9 points combined. -6 on the turnover differential. But Jefferson and Cousins have been good. Jefferson's the first player in 12 years to put up back-to-back 150-yard receiving games to open a season. In this game, he had 11 catches, 9 first downs, 5 of them went for 15 or more yards. 4 of them were contested targets, and he caught 4 of 6 contested targets. Cousins set the franchise record for 708 yards in the first 2 games of a season. And then we get to the Chargers, who's just almost laughable. The passing defense is so bad, right? They played the Titans last week, and Ryan Tannehill. In week 1, Tannehill was miserable, was so bad. He was ranked 28th overall by Pro Football Focus. In week 2, because of how bad the Chargers' pass defense is, he was the number 1 quarterback on the week, Tannehill. The difference between week 1 to week 2. The Titans didn't score more than 27 points last year. They hit 27 once. This was the first time since 2013 that Tannehill has completed 2 passes of at least 45 air yards in a game. I don't know what the hell Brandon Staley is doing or what he is. They had a 4th and 1 on the Titans 44. They punted. There was a 3rd and 4 where they ran the ball. They didn't even give Herbert a chance. On his first year, they went for it every time on 4th down. Literally, they were like your coach, Dan Campbell. He went for it every time. And then there was backlash because it didn't work out for him. And so he flipped. And now he doesn't go for it at all in situations when he really should. And that's the worst thing you can do as a coach. He has no identity anymore. Isn't he supposed to be a defensive coach? They're dead last in defensive DVOA. They're 26th in success rate. They're 30th in EPA per drive. Okay, Gino, it's only been 2 games. In the 3 years now since he's been here, 2 and plus, they're 28th in defensive EPA per drive and 28th in success rate. These are his guys now, right? He's got his roster, his scheme. They have a ton of talent. His scheme is supposed to prevent big plays. So it's from The Athletic. Quote, since Staley arrived, they've given up completions of 30-plus yards more than any team in the league. I just mentioned 75 yards and 49 yards to the Titans. The defense had 3 personal foul penalties. This is the first team in the Super Bowl era to score 50-plus points in their first 2 games, not have a single turnover, and lose both of those games. And it's amazing, Eric, because the offense will look really good. They're top 5 in success rate, DVOA, EPA per drive. But then in overtime, they go 3 and out. Last week, they couldn't score late against Miami. This week, they were 2 of 14 on 3rd down.
Yep.
So they're awesome in a lot of the metrics, but then when the game slows down or when they need to make a big play on 3rd down or late in the game, they don't do it. A couple crazy Herbert stats, and I'm going off because I had the most notes of any team this week on the Chargers because of all the crap they had. Herbert is on the list of like the top 300-yard passing games in their first 4 seasons. He has 23 of them. In those games, the team is 12 and 11. So think about that. In games where he's been awesome and thrown for 300 yards, they've only won half of them, 12 and 11. Compare that to Mahomes. He's had 26 of those. They're 21 and 5 in those games. Kurt Warner, he had 26. They went 22 and 4 in those games. His team did. Marino, he had 22 of them. They went 16 and 6 in those games. And Herbert and the Chargers have gone 12 and 11 in his 23. He's lost 10 games where they've had a lead in the 4th quarter. Those are the most of any team since 2012. And he is only 2 and 5 in overtime games as the starter. This is the 4th consecutive game that they've lost where they've lost by 1 score dating back to last year, including the playoffs. maybe the pass rush got a little bit better. They had 5 sacks. They put some pressure on the quarterback. They didn't move the ball at all on the ground without Eckler. Man, these two teams are perfect for each other.
I want nothing to do with this game. Right? I literally want nothing to do with this game.
And I've got the most notes about these two teams, and I'm completely in agreement with you. I can't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Vikings, obviously, you mentioned that they're just going back. I mean, everything broke their way last year. Everything just kind of evens out. Offensive line has not looked that good even though they lost the game. One thing that really stood out to me was this is the first game, granted, they only played 2, where the Chargers defensive line was able to create some havoc and really get to Tannehill. Are they going to be able to continue that? And are they going to be able to get to Kirk Cousins? Because Cousins isn't the most slickest of foot.
And they've got the offensive line issues there too, right? They've already got a couple guys out on the Vikings.
Yeah, they're banged up. And even when they're healthy, they're not that good.
No.
They traded for Akers today. I don't think Akers is going to be a factor just because the playbook and everything. Even though it is kind of similar to McVay runs, I'm not going to expect that much from him. The one thing for me, though, is in terms of DFS, I think you have 2 ways of doing this. You can either go a Cousins stack with a Keenan Allen stack, just because Minnesota's DBs are just so bad. We're going to be able to take advantage of them every single week in DFS. Or you can flip it the other way and you can go a Justin Herbert, but instead of going with Justin Jefferson, go with TJ Hawkinson. So, I mean, in terms of DFS, that's how I'd look at this game, just because there will be a high-scoring game. I want nothing to do with this. I just want to kind of lay back and see kind of what happens. I do think, though, if the Chargers lose, there's a high probability Staley could be fired.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened early on as we move to the Pats-Jets. Patriots are a 2.5-point favorite on the road here against the Jets. We've known the success that the Patriots have had against the Jets through the years, but this is the first time the Patriots actually started 0-2 at home since 1975. Again last week, first quarter drive ends with a fumble. Dolphins turn that into a touchdown. They have a great play, fantastic special teams play where that dude blocked the field goal. He came around the side and he timed it. They get the ball in Miami territory. They couldn't score.
Yeah.
And they couldn't run the ball at all. They only had 88 yards rushing, 3.5 yards per carry. Miami allowed 233 yards the week before. So that offensive line, with some of the issues they have and a couple missing pieces, they weren't great. Honestly, they just don't have any playmakers either, Eric. And this was something that we've known the last few years. They haven't gone out and made any good acquisitions for game breakers, guys that are legitimately some of the fastest on the field. They didn't have one play of more than 14 yards other than a Mac Jones scramble in that game. And now they're going to play a really good defense of the Jets that is really good at limiting big plays. And now the Jets are going to have to play a good defense here. Look at the over-under in this game. It's 37 because there's just no scoring expected in here. Wilson struggled against the Cowboys. He was graded quarterback number 31 on the week, a couple turnover-worthy plays. Yeah, he had a few fine moments, but you just know he's not the guy when you're watching it. And they can't run the ball at all because teams are going to stack the box. All 3 backs combined for around 24 yards on 10 carries with a fumble. And now from a fantasy standpoint, you got 3 different backs getting involved. And the defense was a little disappointing, in particular the secondary. They allowed Lamb to go nuts in that game. He had 11 catches and he was running wild. It was a little more zone where he was sort of hitting them. And there's 6 possessions in the second half. The Jets went 3 and out, 2 plays fumble, 3 and out to start. It was, that was an ugly game for them. I'm not playing the Patriots and laying the number. I would lean to the Jets. I just don't know if I can get there here. I need it to be at a field goal or over. And I'm not sure if we're going to get that.
Obviously, Belichick has owned Wilson here. Home dog is usually my spot here, but we got to kind of see. Like Sauce Gardner, deleted his Twitter account.
They're already complaining. It's been bad. I know.
Only about getting 4 carries in the game. Pats still have some offensive line issues. That's a little worrisome for me. But when you look at teams that are just due for some positive regression,
the Pats.
I mean, it's the Pat. There's 3 teams that have been the most unluckiest, and the Pats are one of them. Pats are due for some. You could probably make an argument they've been the most unluckiest team when you look at the start of the game against the Eagles and the start of the game against the Dolphins, and getting the ball in Dolphins territory 6 times, only coming away with 3 points. Mac Jones has looked better. Hunter Henry and him obviously have a connection. I don't know. I never lay points. I'm just gonna sit back. I don't want anything to do with this game.
Me
if
too.
I didn't have to bet it, if I was forced to bet it, as crazy as it sounds, I think I would take the Pats just because I think there's a lot of locker room issues going on with the Jets.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it at all. Let's move to the next game. We've got the Saints at the Packers. Packers are a 2-point favorite in this one. Kind of tough for me to take some of what I saw out of that Packers game against the Falcons because they were without Aaron Jones. They were without Watson and offensive lineman Bakhtiari. They also had an injury to their left guard, Jenkins. There's a couple dropped interceptions that they could have had. They blew a 12-point lead, but then late in the game, they stagnated. Things sort of evened out for them. They had a couple huge pass interference penalties, big chunk plays. With my eyes, it's telling me Love's playing pretty well. He also had an interception that was dropped. He's not graded great based on some of the metrics I'm looking at too, but I think he's looked fine. For the Saints, I don't really know what to take of this team right now. Their offense has not looked fantastic. Defensively, they're very, very good. There was one stat I wanted to point out, and then I'll toss it over to you, Eric. The Saints, I believe, had a really cool statistic. I think it's been 20. Go ahead. I'm going to find the stat I have on the Saints, but talk to us about this one, Eric. I can't really get a feel for this, especially based on not knowing a little bit more. What's your sense of like Aaron Jones and Watson this week?
Watson practiced. Jones did not today. I think both of them go. Even if Jones doesn't go, I still like the Packers here. I gave this one out on my show. I got it at -1.5. LaFleur is 21-11 ATS at home, 65%. As a favorite, 19-11, 63.3%. And the thing that I'm looking at the active coaches, LaFleur is the 4th most profitable coach in the league against the spread. Allen, historically, as a dog, he's really struggled. Only 42.5%. He's one of the least most profitable coaches ATS as a dog. And then when you kind of look at, and we saw it Monday night, when you look at Carr's splits, great at home, bad on the road. More interceptions, less completion percentage. He really does struggle. And the weakness for this Packers defense is what? Stopping the run. No Kamara. Jamar Williams is out.
It's out.
So now you're get down to Miller, the rookie from TCU, hasn't played. He's still recovering. Are you going to rely on Jones, who really hasn't shown he can be an every down back? I just don't think the way you can exploit
they're built.
Yeah. To attack the Packers, the Saints are going to be able to take advantage of it. And then you look at the Saints. I know they're 2-0. I can make an argument if Tannehill or
my God, they should have lost week 1 for sure.
You know what I mean? Were any capable? I will say this. I think if Andy Dalton plays, Panthers win that game on Monday night.
Sure.
I just kind of feel they've been very lucky with the quarterbacks that they have played. Against the Titans, they gave up 4.73 yards per carry. Against the Panthers on Monday night, 5 yards per carry. Packers are going to be able to run the ball with A.J. Dillon. They're going to be able to run the ball with Aaron Jones, assuming he plays. I think he's going to play. That's going to be able to open up the passing game. Plus, you're getting Christian Watson back. The field extender, you got Reed and Dobbs working underneath the middle. I just think they're going to use the running game to open up the passing game. And the weakness of the Packers, you want to bet against the Packers when they play a team with an elite rushing game. I don't think
this isn't that team.
I think the Saints are in the market because of, you look at their defensive analytics.
They've allowed 21 points or less in 10 straight games. That's a big stat that's been floating around. They're pretty good on the road too. I think I saw they're the best road team in the NFC since 2018. They're 29-12. This isn't that same team that have a lot of those metrics. And this, again, I'm with you. I'm on the side of the Packers, and we can probably make this one of our 5 plays of the week here, Eric. Let's go to the Titans and the Browns. I bet I know which side of this game you're on. And
see,
folks,
see,
are you going to do it or no? Are you going to do it?
So this is the thing that I looked at. Okay. Vrabel as a dog. We all know it, 62.5%. At 3 or less, we're starting to see some 3s and 2.5 pop in the market with Chubb. So when you get that 3, that's 53% ATS. But when it gets below the 3, that drops all the way to 25%.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't play it right now. But as we look at this line right this second at DRF Sportsbook at 3.5, I punched it already on the Titans, and I would definitely play it there.
The thing, do you know how many drives the Browns defense is allowed in their red zone?
Well, the Steelers didn't run a play in the red zone in the entire game.
They have yet to allow an offense to have a play in the red zone 2 games deep.
With the Steelers and the Bengals so far.
Out of my mind is how much the Chargers defensive line just completely manhandled the Titans offensive line.
Allowed 5 sacks. 2 of them were kind of bad communication.
And you see everyone's like, we're dedicating this to Chubb. And we've seen this in all these sports when the star, the player that rallies the locker room, when he gets hurt, it's that first game back that's kind of the quote unquote rah-rah spot, the get right spot. Titans are very good against the run. You know, you have Ford, but they're really bad against the pass. You got Cooper, you got Elijah Moore, you got
the only thing that worries me though, I gotta say, as someone who wanted the Browns to be good this year, man, there is not much more time for Watson to start figuring it out.
Watson looks awful.
Just horrible. He was 30. He's graded 39. And the thing that he's doing is he's like Justin Fields light. He's taking more sacks than Baker Mayfield ever did. And that was a complaint against Baker when he was there, that he took too many sacks or holding the ball. He's got a great offensive line, even with the issue they have now with Conklin out, and he's still running into it. That's the only thing that worries me, sort of what you're saying. Can he exploit the secondary of the Titans enough for it to matter at over 3? And can they do right?
The Browns. And I mean, you look at it, Browns have been unlucky this year. Browns are another team that haven't been really able to get that much stuff going.
They had 14 in that last game. They had 14 possessions in the game and scored 2 touchdowns. That's what's hard for me. At 3.5, I'm Titans, because I think this game to me just smells like it's a tight game for sort of the reasons why we're kind of going back and forth. At 3, I'd still be okay playing Titans. As soon as it moved under a field goal, I don't play either side. I stay away.
If this gets to 2.5, I'm on the Browns.
You're on the Browns. Yeah.
At 3.5, I don't know. I just know how sports are, and the rah-rah stuff.
Oh yeah, the narrative-y stuff is there. I'm just the game stuff concerns me.
The Browns have not allowed a team inside their 20, and they lost on Monday Night Football because of a pick 6 and a fumble recovery for a touchdown.
My only counter to that would be Matt Canada had his, I believe, 39th straight game where they haven't had 400 yards of total offense. So, that offense is miserable. And they played the week 1 against the Bengals offense that came back and didn't look great again against the Ravens. So that's sort of my whole problem with this game as you're hitting is I want it to be 3 or if it's over, I'm on the Titans here. This might be one of the few games where we're slightly on different sides or kind of feel a little different, but I think we both are sort of knocking both sides. I don't know if short week for Cleveland too, coming off the Monday night game. They got to implement new runners.
This is gonna be Ford. This is gonna be Ford's backfield. I know everyone's.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. He's good, and you're not going to just bring Hunt in right away.
He was drafted to be Chubb's replacement. Chubb wasn't going to be signing here. He was drafted to take over
to take the spot.
Yep. So I think they're just going to give him the keys to the castle a little bit early. And
weird Watson stuff on social media too. Like there's like a burner out there. His like individual coaches are he's just already starting to feel the panic because the Browns fans are going, what did we give up a lot for you? And you got to be looking better than this. But they're 1-1, could easily be 2-0, and we'll see if they can make it 2-1 this week. Panthers is our next game. Eric, they're a 6-point dog on the road at Seattle. Over under in this game is 42. Bryce Young's 4.2 yards per attempt is the third lowest yards per attempt in history for a quarterback in their first 2 games. Now he's dealing with an ankle injury. He sat out practice on Wednesday. The offensive line is bad, and the wide receivers are not good.
I think my counter to that is Frank Wright is a fucking moron.
Yeah. No, it's okay. You don't drop them much. They have effect when you do.
Terrace Marshall, who's a physical specimen, and the first 15 to 20 plays are always scripted. You're telling me Frank Wright was sitting in the locker room and just say, guys, to get this game going, we need to target Adam Thielen.
Well, and that's what I was listening.
31-year-old slow.
On the first 3 drives of the game, there were 8 targets that Young had, 5 of them to Thielen and 3 to Sanders, the running back. That's how his target started.
It's just insane that you have this guy, Terrace Marshall. Like if the Lions trade for Terrace Marshall, I will literally do a backflip.
Well, what you have with him is why people wanted the Panthers to go get Hopkins. It's a big target that he's not going to beat you down the field as much, but he's at least a guy who can go up and fight for a ball and someone that Young can throw the ball to and just take a little pressure off him. They don't have that, and the one that they do have that fits that template, they're not running anything for him. The other guys, they're not fast enough to get open, and they're not physical enough, like you said, a guy like Marshall is.
And then you have the ball in the red zone. You don't even throw one jump ball to him. Not one. Frank Wright is just a moron. It just amazes me how he's still in coaching. I also read this thing, how Young's too small to even do a quarterback sneak.
Yeah.
They can't even, so they have to bring in Dalton. He looks very uncomfortable under center. There's that play going around where he's not lining up under the center. Sanders had to push him over. But I'm a big trenches guy. And Seattle's banged up on the offensive line. Both tackles are going to be out for the game. Panthers
actually played pretty well despite that last week, better than I thought they would. But you're right. Like I couldn't lay this number with Seattle at all at 6. They sort of got the benefit of the doubt last week. We pointed out with some of those turnovers against Detroit. Geno played a lot better. That's a positive, right? He played a lot better. He had that one really bad sack that he took, but then in overtime, he bounced back. I think he went 6 of 7 on the opening drive. He hit some big passes. He ended up with 328 yards. He was graded number 8 quarterback on the week. They missed a couple field goals. I'm staying away because I want to be on the Panthers side, but everything you're pointing out too, I've not been high on Young coming into the year, and there's nothing that I've seen so far that makes me want to change my mind on that.
Yeah, but I will say this, looking at this, do you trust Geno Smith to cover a big number?
No, that's what I mean. But on the flip side, I may not have to trust Geno Smith. It may be a defensive situation where Carolina just can't move the ball at all, can't score, turn the ball over. I wouldn't lay it with Seattle.
My bet in this is just simple. Last year, the second worst team in the league defending the tight end, giving up the most yards per game, was the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are the worst team 2 games in defending the tight end. I'll look for some low Hayden Hurst props. It'll probably be like 29, 28. I'll kind of look there. That's going to be the only action that I want in this game.
Yeah, he looked pretty good in week 1 also. I think you and I are both going to be in the same spot in this next game as we move to the Bears at the Chiefs.
So first
12
of
and a
all,
half.
like the stories going around now, I live in the Chicagoland area. The stories going around right now are absolutely insane. Like there's a story going around now. Look, I don't even know if it's true or not. There's rumors going around that Alan Williams, their defensive coordinator, his house was raided by the FBI. Like I saw that on Twitter. I don't know if that's true. And for the FBI to raid your house, it's got to be some serious stuff. The owner, McCaskey, has been at Hallis Hall. He usually goes there once a day, but he's staying there more and he's starting to interact with the coaches more. You know what I mean? It's not like a typical thing.
Yep.
You have Justin Fields saying that the coaches are making him think too much and he's just going to go back to playing the way he used to, just kind of adapting. And this is the second high draft pick in a row that's a quarterback that came out with a lot of tools that the Bears have kind of messed up.
Yep.
And the thing that really blows my mind is I'm a big Jim Caldwell guy. Caldwell showed up to that meeting with a multi-year plan of what he was going to do to develop Justin Fields.
You don't see what's crazy is
hire him.
They're not.
You don't hire him. Like, what are you doing?
They're not running. It's Eric. They did the same exact thing last year at the beginning of the year when they tried to make him a passer, and they realized. I mean, they didn't have very many weapons, and they ended up designing a lot more scripted runs for him. And then he was a lot better, and the offense was a lot better. They're literally trying to make him a drop back passer. It does not make any sense. With a guy like this, he had 4 carries for 3 yards. Where are the design runs? You let him run it a few times, and then what that does is it keeps the defense more honest. They feel like they have to be worried about that. It gives him more one-on-one situations, better routes with the receivers. Receivers get left open because guys start worrying about, Fields moving around. They come up a little bit. That's when he was able to hit bigger plays. I don't know why they're not doing that. It's like very simple stuff. This is a guy who, I will say, everything that he said, I think is right. You could tell that he looks like he's in his head because he's running into sacks. Like there are open receivers that he's not hitting. I don't know whose fault really that is. Is it all him? Is it the coaching? Is it a combination? All that being said, they've been awful. They've been miserable on offense. He's been bad. Mooney got hurt. They took 6 sacks. They've not completed one pass between 10 and 19 yards. Not one. I liked him this week. Kansas City still has some issues. Of the 96 games Mahomes has started, that was their worst ever success rate. The 2 games they've had this year, they have a lower success rate than they had any game last year. They had 3 turnovers in the first half. They only had 19 total first downs, 12 penalties in the game. Also, they have issues at the offensive line. 1 week after that guy Taylor looked like he was getting off the line early, he picked up 5 penalties. He became the most penalized player in a single game in 23 years. They still have issues at wide receiver. Tony fumbled on a screen pass, and the receivers combined to fumble 3 times. Have the Bears been good? No. Is this number too big? Yes. I'm on the Bears.
Yeah, I'm on the Bears too. Mahomes 27, 35-1, 43% ATS favorite of 3 or more. Home favorites, 7 as a home favorite, 7 or more, 41% ATS, double-digit favorite, 35%. Historically, Mahomes has showed he really doesn't cover these big numbers. We mentioned it with Bieniemy. Offense just doesn't look right. Chiefs just aren't clicking. It's not as crisp. So I really think Bieniemy, like I said, did more than people realize. Mahomes' completion percentage is the lowest through 2 games it's been since he started. So that's something. Mahomes isn't as crisp, isn't getting the wide receivers. And Eberflus is coaching for his job. This is it for him. I expect them to open up the playbook. I expect them to go after DJ Moore a little bit more, take advantage of some stuff that the issues that the Chiefs have going on. I got this at 13. I still like the 12.5 though.
Arizona Cowboys. The Cowboys are a 12-point favorite on the road in here. Their defense has looked fantastic. I mean, they should not be a 12-point favorite on the road like this early in the season. But man, we saw with Arizona last week, they're up 20-0 at half, and then they just lay an egg in the second half. They had to punt 3 times in the fourth quarter, and they got to play San Francisco and Dallas in these next 2 games coming up. Arizona, I could do it with the Bears. Dobbs has actually looked better and more competent than people would have suggested, and Arizona's defense looked fine in the first half and in game 1. I don't know if I can get there here, Eric. Could you get there with this one with Arizona?
Guess who has the second best ATS percentage when laying 7 points or more?
McCarthy or Dak? He's great in this situation, huh?
Yeah, he's just good.
He covers like a machine, and he beats up on the bad teams. They've done a good job with him because he hasn't had to do much. He's only got 2 touchdown passes, but no interceptions. He didn't have one game last year where he went back-to-back games without an interception. Not one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm staying away.
I'm staying away too.
Yep. Plenty of other plays for me elsewhere. Steelers, Raiders. We'll go kind of quick through these last couple games, but remember, Eric and I will also have a couple more shows later in the week. Steelers, Raiders. Eric, Steelers are a 2.5-ish point dog on the road. The Raiders got beat up last week by the Bills, started the game off well, but then just nothing, couldn't really make adjustments. And now Adams got hurt. Josh Jacobs had negative 2 yards on 9 carries. It was the fewest rushing yards in a single game by a reigning rushing leader since 1950. Jimmy G, he was graded quarterback 25 on the week. I don't know why they're not throwing the ball to Renfro at all. He got no targets in week 1, and then he got 1 target.
No connection. Like
last week, right?
Speaking, Garoppolo really doesn't target the slot, and Renfro had that connection with what's his face, Derek Carr. So I mean, unfortunately, he's just not getting any love just because of the quarterback switch. Big line movement here. Steelers were laying a point and a half. It's already moved 3 points. So with that being said, I kind of think the value is going to be on the Steelers. I really haven't done anything in this game. Tomlin, 56% ATS in these primetime spots. Road Dogs, 61%.
I think it's just another one of these instances, Eric, where I'm stealing a line from you again. Which of all of these units, like which do you trust the most in this game?
I trust the Steelers defense.
Right, exactly. Right, 100%.
Get home.
100%.
But on the flip side, this Allegiance Field, that thing is loud.
Yeah.
You trust Pickett's going to be able to make some plays, going to be able to get home. I don't know. If this gets to 3, maybe I can talk myself into the Steelers, but I don't trust the Raiders winning with any margin. So right now, this is probably just kind of a stay away game for me.
2 more games to discuss, and they're both Monday Night Football games for the next foreseeable future. We'll have a couple Monday games, and the games will be simulcasted in the years. I know.
Absolutely. I despise it. I hate it. Why are you trying to change such a good thing? Give me one.
And they're doing it. Well, they're doing it this year right now because of the writer's strike. Because now they use it on ABC and on ESPN because ABC needs the programming because they don't have right now is when a lot of the new TV shows would be starting and they're not. So they don't have content and they're going to try to double up. They're going to at least double up the simulcasting and have it on like ABC and ESPN. But this is a thing that's going to be happening now for the next few years. 2 Monday games, Eric. I might add the Steelers as a play for us if we need. I think we've got 3. That might be a 4th one for us. Eagles, Bucks, Monday Night Football. Eagles show how well-rounded they are last week. After week 1, Goddard did nothing. Then they got him more involved. He was targeted 7 times. In week 1, Swift did nothing. Then week 2, they have 175 yards rushing because Gainwell was out. Is that
because of my theory of the Sunday to Thursday turnover, though? Did they purposely rest him?
And that's smart if they did, and that's good coaching. Very good coaching if they did. And he looked fresh because he didn't have any bumps from Thursday. Again, they weren't like fluid. They kicked a field goal on the opening drive. They went 3 and out. They threw an interception, then a missed field goal. When they started to lean on the run, they ran on 13 out of 16 plays, and then they scored on 4 straight possessions in doing so. keep in mind, this is a new coordinator on both sides. So they are figuring things out, right? New play caller. So it's just his second game calling plays here. And you could see that A.J. Brown was not happy. They almost got in a fight on the sideline. All of his receptions this year have been 9 air yards or fewer, and he only had 4 catches for 29 yards. Their secondary is not in great shape. Bradbury and Blankenship were inactive. Maddox got hurt. The backups got torched, and even Darius Slay, who was covering Jefferson for much of the game, he got lit up. Jefferson, we mentioned his numbers earlier. Erik, my guy, Baker freaking Mayfield, I gotta pump him up right now because who knows how long it's going to last. But Baker, through 2 weeks, he's graded quarterback number 3 in passing grade. He's been really good. He finished 26 of 34, 317 yards, no interceptions, big plays to Evans. He's had no turnovers so far this year and only 1 sack. That he's done all that you can ask of him, right? That's all you're asking.
He's played absolutely great. And
this is as good of a stretch of 2 games as he's probably played in his whole career, honestly.
Yeah, he's looking good. Maturity-wise, he's really kind of fired the team up.
It's nice that he's kind of under the radar, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
nobody's talking about him. They're not out in the public. It's like, oh, yeah, Tampa's won 2 games and Baker's played well. It's not out there. He's not in a bunch of commercials. He's not, you know what I mean? It's like, it's good for him. It feels like.
For me, I look at it like this, and I said there's going to be 2 quarterbacks I'm betting on. I absolutely
I knew it.
I took him here. I got him here. I took him at the 5. The Eagles, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Eagles have a lot of injuries in the secondary. Evans and Godwin have looked great. I think they're going to be.
You called that one, my friend. You were all over Mike Evans and his prop this year, and he's been incredible through 2 weeks so far, and like breaking away too. Like, good on Baker and good on him for just getting good on the staff. Baker throws the ball down the field more than Brady, right? No one's going to compare Baker to Brady in a lot of ways, but Baker will take way more shots deep down the field.
Yeah, he'll take way more shots, everything. And he'll push the ball more. He has the arm strength. So I really like that. Eagles are counting on a lot of young players. That's another thing you have to monitor. Lead into some rookie mistakes. You mentioned the 2 young play callers. And another thing that stood out to me in that Thursday game was Hurts's feet. He wasn't getting his feet set at any of his throws, caused a lot of the throws to be off. There is obviously, it looks to be a little bit of some internal issues going on with A.J. Brown, upset with the amount of targets and receptions that he's getting. I know people are going to look to target Smith, but Vita Vea's there. Vita Vea, whatever his name is. He's there. He's going to be clogging up that middle, make stuff a little bit harder for Smith. Mayfield's look good. I think they're going to be able to take advantage of the issues that the Eagles have being so young and with their injuries. I'll take the 5.
Yeah, we're on this one together too. So we're going to play the Bucks at home as a home dog here. You're getting 5-ish and in that range. Let's go to the last game of this week. Rams Bengals. Man, my Rammies, I got to give them credit, Erik. They have played really well through 2 weeks. Puka Nacua, 15 catches. He's the only player this year with double-digit receptions both weeks, and he broke the record for the most ever receptions by a rookie, the most ever catches in the first 2 games of a career. They scored on all 3 first-half possessions. They were up 17-10. San Francisco scores a touchdown on the final play of the half. So then they tie. And later in the game, the Rams are driving on the 49ers 31. It's second down, so they're already in field goal range. Ball bounces off their receiver's hands, and the 49ers get a field goal there, so a 6-point swing. It's back to a 7-point game. The Rams are driving again. Van Jefferson runs a terrible route, doesn't come back to the ball. Defender steps right in front, and then the 49ers go up 10. They had more first downs. They ran more total plays, more total yards. They were better on third down, won the time of possession by over 6.5 minutes, but 2 turnovers. That's the difference in the game, and they did all that without their best player. Look, I don't know what's going on with Burrow, but I can't be on the Bengals side right now based on what I've seen from them, and I'm not sure if he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play, Erik. This is 2.5 here. I mean, I'm leaning Rams just based on that. I feel like the number moves a little when we get some for sure announcements that he may not be in there. And everything I've been reading and hearing today is that they may be making moves that he may be gone for a few weeks. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I can back the Bengals not knowing their quarterback issues, and their offense hasn't even looked great before. It felt like Burrow was starting to get into a rhythm, and now he's going to be hurt.
I think the main thing here is we need to realize that this game opened up at 7. When this game opened up 7, I was like,
can't touch it.
I'll take the Rams. Like that was, I was like, I'm definitely going to be taking the Rams. And then the Burrow news came out, and this thing just dropped to 1.5. Now it's kind of a buyback at 2.5. Now look, if Burrow comes in, I'm going to be all about the Rams. I try to tell you, man, you know, this Rams team is good, dude. I really think they're a little bit under the radar. I think
they are. They're way better. They're way better than I thought. And
I think they're like,
dude, this team, they could absolutely make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
If they stay healthy.
Let's face it, they could have beat San Francisco.
They should have. They were better than them. They outplayed them in every way. There were just every mistake they made, the 49ers capitalized. They were 2 receiver mistakes. And if those receivers don't make those mistakes, the Rams are going to win that game.
Yep. And I don't know. I look at it like Rams are nothing for me here. I'm just going to kind of wait. Obviously, it's going to be, I mean, the Bengals, if they don't win this game, their season could completely fall off.
I know. The only thing that's nice for them is they got about a 3 or 4 week stretch coming up where they've got some winnable games. But you're saying this was a game that on paper early in the year, you chalked up as a win for them.
Yeah.
Right. You're looking at their schedule. You're like, oh, okay, we're at home against a Rams team that's not going to be good. They're probably trying to tank, like total win. Now, all of a sudden, these games are games that are losses. Like, okay, maybe you chalked up game 1 of the year or, you know, one of your first 2 games as a loss against your divisional, you know, I could have seen that, but you've already lost 2 games in the division. And now you got a Rams team that was a win on paper coming your way on Monday night. We'll see if Burrow's healthy. He's got an extra day. He probably will try to gut it out, but I'm not sure if that'll be the best for them. Remember, you can join me and Eric again on Friday, 6:00 p.m. Eastern time at DRF Sportsbook. Make sure to follow Eric, eTop21 Sports all over the place, and his podcast will come out on Friday as well. Eric, anything to mention before we let you go?
No. Let's hopefully, you know, it's been a good week, good year so far. Hopefully we can kind of keep it going and, you know, make some money.
I got us as Broncos plus 6.5. We got the Packers plus Packers minus the 2. We got the Bears plus the 12.5. We've got Tampa plus 5. And then I put in for our 5th one Steelers plus 2.5 because we needed a 5th. And that just sort of felt like the one that we were both on the side of most. We recommend that you wait and see if you can get a better number. We'll mention it right now because if you're listening to the show, I try to mention numbers that we have at least right now. And so we won't grade ourselves on a number that we don't even have yet. We'll have to score ourselves on that one at plus 2.5. Eric, buddy, thank you so much, man. You have a great rest of your night, and we'll be talking again a lot this weekend.
Sounds good.